Hello, everyone. Hopefully, you can hear us and see us. We'll be starting in just a second. Happy Friday. And all of that good stuff. Oh, let me turn focus assist on. Why can't I just right click enable focus assist anymore on Windows 11? That's so annoying. Just going to put a do not disturb mode on my phone. My Surface Duo. Let's unpop you out. Sounds good. Looks good. Thank you very much. Thank God it's Friday. Absolutely. Thank goodness it's Friday.
All right, I'm sending out the tweet.
Nice.
The carrier pigeon should be delivering it soon.
I'll keep a lookout. Any day now, Daniel.
What are you talking about? It got tweeted.
No, we'll just begin.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, you want me to start the show? What is this?
You are the host.
I gotta be the prima donna. Where am I?
We're waiting on you, Daniel. M&Ms? Everybody's outside.
All right. Let's see. I am now recording.
I am now recording as well.
3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Windows Central Podcast, episode 237, part 2, for August 6th, 2021. Apparently, at some point, I screwed up the podcast numbering. So if you're listening to 237 again, don't adjust your dial. It is... This is the right one. This is the new one. This is the new one. It's not the old one. This week we'll be talking about, although it's going to sound like the old one, because we're going to talk about a new Windows 11 build that popped out this week, and some news around that, as well as some surprises. Panos Panay teased some new apps and new app experiences. We'll talk about sort of what that means in terms of the overall theme that we're getting with Windows 11, which is more than just rounded squares, despite the poll from Microsoft. So we'll talk about that as well as OneNote. We'll answer the long-running mystery. What do you do with OneNote UWP and OneNote Win32? You make them kiss. That's what you do. We'll also talk about Windows 365 launching and apparently it having a pretty good week. We'll talk also a little bit about the Xbox Game Pass for PC. Gets a thumbs down from Jez Corden. What's that? Yes, we don't just embrace and love everything that Microsoft does. And he has some issues with the Game Pass for PC, not the Xbox one, the PC version. We'll go through what that means and why he's actually right. Some Steam Deck news. So apparently some media outlets, not us, but that's fine. I couldn't do the video anyway. Got some hands-on with the Steam Deck, and specifically Linus Tech Tips, who had the most nerdy video I've ever seen. That's what happens when we take a true tech geek and let him try out something new, and he comes across, really impressed by it. So I'll just kind of run through that and what to expect and some surprises there. We'll do some roundups of this week's reviews, including the ThinkPad X1 Yoga Gen 6. I like how Lenovo just calls their stuff Gen 6, Gen 7. It's actually pretty easy. They've been spending years refining their naming schemes, and they're finally kind of narrowed it down. It's not perfect. They have the ThinkPad X1 Titanium Yoga 5G. That's a little bit of a mouthful for one device, but they are getting better. And let's see, we also had some, the Razer Anzu. Those are the smart glasses I showed off a few months ago. Richard Devine reviewed them. I still have them. We're a little divided on it. I think it's a great concept, but I'm waiting for a version 2. And we'll talk about the thing of the week. Maybe if we can think of a thing of the week. We'll see what happens. It's been one of those weeks, folks. Anyways, let's get to it. Zach, how are you doing on this fine Friday?
I am not too bad. How are you?
Hanging in there. Are you excited for the weekend? Like apparently everybody is.
I'm always excited for the weekend. When it turns to Monday, I'm looking forward to the next weekend. This is just how it is.
Yes. Yeah, this job is it's definitely turned into a 9 to 5. It's actually a 9 to 5 job now. I'm actually been
Yeah,
forcing myself
you're
to
like
get
an
up
adult now.
earlier.
It's unbelievable.
I know it's weird, right? It stinks at 11:30 at night now. I'm starting to get sleepy. I used
Yeah.
to sleep at like 2 a.m. Like that was my thing, and now it's like I'm forcing myself to bed before 1. Yeah, I don't like being an
Do
adult.
you not feel better in the day though?
I do.
Yeah.
It's funny because now 2 p.m. rolls around. I'm like, oh my god, it's so late. I got so much to do. It's 2 p.m. Uh, but yeah, I went to go see a movie last night. First movie since who knows, February or March 2020. One of my theaters around me closed, and this is a smaller one. I went with my best friend. We watched Old, which is not a great movie, but this theater I went to go see is sort of like a community theater thing, so it's a lot cheaper. It was a fun movie. I
Right.
don't know I would pay a lot of money to go see it, but it was fun. I laughed a lot during it, which I'm not sure I'm supposed to laugh. I laugh during horror kind of movies sometimes because I think it's when people. I think everything's a cartoon, so when people die, sometimes
Yeah.
hysterically I laugh. But anywho, let's get to the news. I suppose Windows 11 had a new build this week,
Yep.
dropped on Thursday, just as always. Not a lot of stuff though in this build. So why don't you go through and tell us what is new, what's the big deal, and if you're still on dev, you should switch to beta, but you got a reprieve this week because if I'm correct, these are the same builds for dev
Yes.
and beta, but you can still switch to your beta channel.
Yeah. So build 22,000.120 went out to dev and beta this week. Like Dan mentioned, not too much in it in regards to new features. I think that's going to be the case going forward at this point. I think most of what Windows 11 is going to be is in the preview program at this point. We're still waiting for Android app support, but that's, I think, going to be a separate thing anyway. So in this build, we have a new widget. We have a family safety widget. So if you use Microsoft's family safety features, which allows you to create like family groups and assign children accounts and adult accounts and do things like monitor what their web browsing history is and give them money to spend in the Microsoft Store, that is now available to you via a little widget in the widget panel, which is kind of nice. But other than that, it's mostly just fixes and changes to just make Windows 11 feel smoother and more performant. And this is a build that has a lot of fixes. There's hundreds of fixes in this build. Still a handful, quite a big list of known issues. But again, we're still a few months away from October, so plenty of time for them to fix that. But this week's build was definitely a bug fix build, and that's good to see because at this point I think build 120.120 is a really nice build. This is certainly starting to feel like RTM worthy. And so I'm feeling more confident that this full shipping build will be actually pretty nice to install and run as soon as it's available. But like I said, still a few known issues. None of them groundbreaking, I don't think. There are some annoying ones, and there's still some multi-monitor issues that people are running into and whatnot. But for the most part, I think for general usage, this is pretty stable at this point. I've had no issues. The last build had like a localization issue where the UAC prompt was all the wording in there was all off and stuff. That's been fixed in this build as well. Lots of fixes to the taskbar and start menu, File Explorer. The context menus now with File Explorer and the desktop are now much smaller, so they make more sense for mouse usage. They've also disabled an animation which would play when you were switching between virtual desktops because apparently they couldn't get it to work smoothly. Hopefully they've re-enabled that, or maybe they won't, I don't know. But yes, that's basically all the sort of notable changes in this build. You're still running Windows 11 on your main PC, aren't you? How are you finding it?
I've had no issues.
Yeah.
Let's see. I mean, the biggest thing, of course, was the Windows Hello bug a couple weeks ago. That was a simple fix, though. Let's see. I've actually had, I think I've mentioned this before, I've had a little bit more issues with running Edge Dev.
Yeah.
Sometimes I've had issues with like the right-click menu wouldn't come up. Looks like the GUI almost crashes and has to refresh or something like that. So I've had a lot of, although looking at it now, I do have an update, so maybe that fixes it. So, but I haven't had no issues to report. Really no problems. It's been pretty solid, and I'm running it on at least 5 laptops, which is getting it's getting a lot to juggle these days.
Yeah.
As I'm trying to remember, and I also have new devices that have come in. And speaking of struggling, I'm struggling not to put Windows 11 on them, which is just my default instinct. But so far, yeah, everything's been
Yeah.
really smooth.
The Microsoft Store also got an update this week. They mentioned it in this changelog, which I actually didn't see originally. So they've added auto scrolling on the Spotlight panel. So when you open the Microsoft Store app, there's like this main sort of header which now automatically scrolls through whatever it is they are promoting. There's a new gaming product detail page design. So if you're looking into a gaming thing specifically, it has a nicer sort of looking page that takes advantage of the largest real estate on a gaming PC, for example. And then we also have a new ratings and review dialogue as well. So small updates to the store. The new Microsoft Store is nice, but I have noticed issues in it. Like, for example, the Git updates button, although it does work, it doesn't always show you that it's got updates. It will, so you press Git updates, the update button will load, and then it will, stop loading. And then nothing will change. It won't pull in any updates, but actually it is pulling in updates and you'll start getting notifications. That's the only real bug I've sort of run into with the new Microsoft Store so far. That and the Office that comes through the store doesn't work when you assign it. If you jump into the beta ring for Office, the store will not pull the beta builds for some reason. I don't know why. It used to work. It doesn't anymore. But other than that, it seems to be pretty good. I actually really like the new Microsoft Store app. It's very clean. It's very pretty looking. And I think that sort of leads us nicely into the other stuff that they've sort of half announced this week. Panos Panay started teasing a couple of new app experiences coming to Windows 11, first of which was for the snipping tool. And this is kind of stuff we've been expecting. Sun Valley was never just about the shell. It was about revigorating the entire Windows desktop user experience, and that includes the inbox apps. We said this originally with our Sun Valley report back in, I want to say, October last year at this point. We've known about Sun Valley for a while. And so this is slowly starting to sort of come to life, and we are going to start seeing the stuff in the Insider program soon, starting with the snipping tool, I guess, which is being merged with Snip and Sketch. So as of right now, for those who may not be familiar, Microsoft has two snipping experiences in Windows. They have the classic snipping tool, which has been around since, I think, Windows 7, maybe Windows Vista. And then we have Snip and Sketch, which was new to a version of Windows 10, and that allows that builds in inking on screenshots and so on and so forth. So they've had them sort of separately for a while now. Then at one point they announced that they were going to get rid of snipping tool and just have Snip and Sketch. Then they put a pause on that plan. And now with Windows 11, what the actual plan is they're going to sort of merge both of them. So snipping tool will be the default snipping experience, and it will just incorporate the Snip and Sketch features, as well as update with a sort of new modern interface. So the snipping tool will no longer look like a Windows 7 app. It will now have WinUI designs, I think it will be using. So it look just like Windows 11, rounded corners, modern context menus, etc. It will take you into the WinShift-S UI, which gives you that little snipping bar at the top, which allows you to do a full screen snip or a window snip or a custom snip. Then once you take the snip, that will load you into Snip and Sketch, which is where you can then ink on it or do some other minor edits to it before saving it to your clipboard or saving it as a file in File Explorer. So that's nice to see. That's going to come to the Insider program at some point in the near future. The other thing they announced is a new clock app, which is kind of interesting because this app appears to incorporate Spotify for some reason. So it appears what they're working on is a feature called Focus Sessions or something along those lines, which will allow you to sort of set a timer, set a goal or a task that you want to complete while using Windows, and you can set a playlist to it and start the timer, which is a cool idea. I think OnePlus has a similar thing on their phones. They have like a quiet mode or something, which allows you to just get what it is you need to do done, and it like locks out a lot of other features. I think this might be a similar thing. But it's a cool idea, and this is a brand new sort of clock app which they appear to be building. So I'm excited to see what this looks like.
You also forgot it integrates To Do.
Oh, well. Right. Yes. Yes, you're right. So it does integrate To Do. They have like checkboxes for the things that you have synced from your To Do. And that was good as well. So you can like tick off.
And it's a Pomodoro, I believe it's called, timer. That's the style of the timer,
yes.
Which is very popular design. A lot of iOS apps use this as a countdown timer. Yeah, so what this looks like is like you kind of launch it, it integrates with To Do and Spotify. You pick the task you want to start working on, you set the timer, maybe put some music on, and like you said, it locks everything else out so you can kind of do that one thing. There are a lot of questions, of course. I know. I mean, I have Spotify Premium for multiple reasons.
Yeah.
I have to have it for my Tesla. It's the only way you can run it in there. But I don't know what that means for free users. Like, are you going to be in the middle of your focus session and an ad's going to come on? I don't know. So either, yes, you hear an ad during your focus session, or this is only for Spotify Premium users. We actually have no idea. I imagine it'll probably work with just Spotify in general. But I don't know. They could use as an upsell for Spotify Premium too.
Yeah.
But I think it's a great idea. These are little small things that focus on productivity. Obviously, that is still the mantra of Microsoft and Windows. But at the same time, it's actually a new feature, and it seems like a lot of people have a lot of interest in it. So
yeah, this is all part of their Sun Valley effort of I guess rejuvenating the inbox apps in addition to the just overall UX.
Right.
They want to add stuff to make Windows a unique experience that helps you be more productive. They're all about being more productive, and this clock experience, this new clock app, I assume this is in the video it's called Clock, but I assume it replaces alarms and clock. I assume it still has alarms capability, although I doubt many people
it's the same icon.
Yeah, I doubt many people actually use the alarm function in that app, because most people have a PC, and PCs are typically, not always, but typically aren't used as alarm clocks.
Zach Bowden doesn't use his PC to wake him up in the morning.
I do not, surprisingly.
You don't have the Surface Studio by your bedside.
It's a big alarm clock.
You call yourself a fan?
Yeah, okay. I know. But yes, so those are the two sort of new apps coming sort of soon, like within the next month or so. I think that they were light on details. The videos were very short, and we sort of had to just sort of put together the things we were seeing as what made sense as to what these were going to be. Right. They didn't release blog posts or any information about when this would be coming, which is typical of Microsoft. But there we have it. We are expecting more app updates.
It was very much a tease.
Yeah, we are also expecting more updates, like things like the Photos app is getting a major overhaul as well, I'm told. So yeah, look forward to all of that stuff. The mail and calendar stuff, of course, with One Outlook, that's supposed to be coming at some point as well. They also announced, this is sort of separately from Windows 11, but we'll bundle it here anyway because it sort of affects Windows 11. OneNote for a while now has had sort of two paths it's been going down. They've had OneNote for Windows 10, which is UWP OneNote, as what I will refer to it going forward. And then they've had the sort of classic OneNote application, which is the Win32 OneNote. And they've existed side by side for a while. At one point, the UWP OneNote was going to be the future of OneNote, and then they decided to scale that back and treat them equally. And that's been the case since, I want to say, 2019, 2018 maybe. But as of this week, they've officially confirmed that the plan is going forward to merge the two programs together, use the Win32 OneNote as the sort of base going forward, and essentially port over the best of UWP OneNote to Win32 OneNote. So at some point in 2022, if you're a UWP OneNote user, you will get a notification that says, hey, upgrade to the new OneNote, which will essentially just download Win32 OneNote. But by that point, they should have already incorporated most of the most popular features within UWP OneNote so that your transition isn't as jarring. Because the biggest thing for me right now, I use UWP OneNote, is the Win32 OneNote. The UI is completely different, and in my opinion, way worse. I know there's some OneNote diehards who think that the opposite, but as somebody who just likes to just ink or take notes and doesn't really care about the rest of the features in the app, my goodness, the Win32 OneNote is complex. So the plan is to offer both UIs in this new Win32 OneNote app. So you'll be able to use the sort of modern UWP UI or this more complex Win32 UI, both of which will be updated, I assume, with WinUI 3.0 or whatever they're using in 2022, which will make it look like a Windows 11 app. So it will look native to the platform, with the modern context menus and all of that good stuff. And I think this is a good thing. It's better to have one app than two apps. You know, it's called OneNote. After all, the fact that they were two apps is kind of funny. But they are... What Windows 11 appears to be doing to Microsoft is that they appear to be getting their crap together, essentially. They are finally deciding on things rather than just running two things side by side because it doesn't make sense in some parts or make sense in others. They're just going, right, we need to consolidate. We need to do one thing once and do it good the one time. So we're going to have one version of OneNote. We're going to have one modern or one app platform in general, which is supposed to be this Project Reunion thing. You know, they are consolidating, they're simplifying, and I think this is going to be really good for Windows 11. I'm really liking what I'm seeing with the effort around Windows 11 so far, and hopefully this continues into 2022 and beyond.
Yeah, I agree. You know, part of this is undoing some of the theory behind UWP, or at least the need for it, right? The reason why there were two OneNotes was because of Windows Phone. You know, you needed a OneNote application there. And so they're like, well, we'll use UWP. We'll write OneNote for phone. It'll be the same one, like a lighter version almost for PC. But we don't want to tick off all the Office users, so we'll leave OneNote there as well. And that's a recurring theme. And now they got to kind of undo that because the necessity of UWP doesn't really like make sense, right? Even for next gen type devices like HoloLens. I mean, you and I barely use our own HoloLens, but we never opened up OneNote on it. I can say that much. Um, so the need for this theory that, oh, we need one app that can run everywhere, and typically not going to run on Xbox, right? So it has gone away.
Yes.
So and that went away years ago, but the issue is these apps kind of stuck around, and it was kind of a fight, which one's better and all that. Now it seems like Panos is coming through, it's like he took over the apartment, comes through, and he's looking at all the damage done. He's like, all right, we got to fix this, fix that, we got to undo this. And yeah, he's basically seems like he's tasked people with, fixing old experiences, getting rid of redundancies in the system, snipping tool and snip and sketch. I actually used snipping tool like crazy for a long time, but then I started using snip and sketch.
Yeah.
Not because of the key shortcut. I would use it, and I like using that. So I use the Win Shift S. I don't really use the editor part for it though, where it comes up and that's where I get like a jarring kind of thing. Like I kind of like the original snipping tool for that. But now they're kind of going to merge the two, which is fine. All I know is I like the shortcut. That's what I use the most every day. We still don't know. There's probably a lot more of this coming, right? So these announcements this week kind of came as a surprise. We weren't aware of them. And presumably they're going to do more of these. I assume also this is because there's a Windows 11, the proper operating system. We're basically beta testing that right now. But all these smaller experiences are owned by separate smaller teams.
Right.
And those teams have different ETAs and different schedules. And as they kind of go to a yellow light, we can tease them, and then they go to green to ship. I think we're starting to see that, which means there's definitely a good chance we'll see more of this. You've already mentioned Photos app. So Photos app is, I think, the big one we're all kind of waiting on. I still have other questions, what about MSN News and Weather?
Right.
And those are both great apps. They're also old apps, right? Are they going to do something clever around that? There's been a lot of momentum with Microsoft on the news front, whether it's within their own apps and everything on Android and iOS, as well as the web itself. And they're doing, of course, the news and weather widgets and stuff like that. And they have a feedback system with the thumbs up, thumbs down. So I'd be shocked if we don't see that in a more modern interface come over. But then there's also things we don't know, right? There's a refreshing of the current apps, which we all want to see, but are there other new apps that are coming? That's going to be the real interesting thing. And same with MS Paint and 3D Paint, right? That's still a weird thing that exists and is floating around out there. So what do they do with those two? So there's still a lot of cleanup, but presumably they have a plan. But I kind of like this theme too, this idea of like, let's streamline Windows everywhere, right, including the app experiences, and let's get focused on what we want to do and deliver new experiences that actually help people work better and more consistently. So.
And what's really nice about this push is that everybody seems to be on board, unlike previous efforts from the Windows team where they've tried to build like a consistent UI or app platform with the likes of Windows 8 and then Windows 10. Not everybody was always on board. We never really got a full version of Office UWP. Some of the other app teams at Microsoft never decided to adopt the Microsoft Store. That's not happening anymore. Everybody at Microsoft who builds an app, it seems to be on board with Windows 11 and appears to be updating the app to at least make it look consistent with the rest of the UI. This Office is doing it. They are updating their Win32 program to look like a Windows 11 app, which is really nice. Microsoft Teams is slowly moving to WebView 2, which should hopefully make the app just feel nicer to use and like the clunky experience it is now. We are getting integrations here and everybody seems to be on board, which is really nice to see. Whereas that definitely wasn't the case before. So somebody at Microsoft was able to sort of bash a few heads together and go, listen, this looks embarrassing. We see Apple, we see Google, they're all on board with their own stuff. We need to do the same, and they are finally doing that. But to be fair, they are only really doing it because the Windows team finally, I guess, conceded and said, all right, fine, we will update Win32 so you can make it look prettier. They essentially went, right, UWP isn't the requirement anymore. UWP is a thing that you can use if you want, but if you don't want it, you don't have to use it. We will make it easy for Win32 apps to adopt the modern sort of aspects of the UWP platform. And that's what we're seeing. And that's why these app platforms, these app teams at Microsoft are finally on board.
Yeah, so I mean, what Zach's referring to, what was known as Project Reunion is now, I believe, WinUI 3.0. I think that's the name. But yeah, it's this idea that you're taking the cool stuff that's in UWP and
Yes.
merging it with the legacy cool stuff of Win32 to make these kind of new apps, which give you the best of both worlds. And it allows them to break free of having to make this stuff work on phones, right?
Yeah.
Because that was the driving feature for UWP and Xbox too, at least for some apps, but less so. But without that need there, they can kind of basically go back to their roots, which I think is nice. And I'm also curious, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt that these apps will also be optimized for ARM. We've already seen this with Windows 11 itself,
Yeah.
using ARM64 EC, the extended compatibility layer that allows, instead of now taking a Win32 app and 100% making it ARM64 compatible, you can take parts of the app and optimize it for ARM64. And that's what you see a lot of in Windows 11, which is why the OS feels better on ARM64 devices. And so I assume these apps, including OneNote and everything like that, are going to also be better optimized for ARM. It is still Microsoft. I think we're all a little still like shell shocked from them. Like, yeah, of course, this new thing that's brand new to Windows 11 doesn't run on ARM. Like, I could still imagine that happening, but I think the chances of that are definitely dwindling because they
Yeah.
seem like now ARM is really entering a new phase for them. And so a lot of these apps being rewritten or updated also allow them to optimize them for ARM devices, which are increasingly becoming important. And I'm going to reiterate that I think 2022 is going to be a very big year for ARM and Windows as we see more devices and more chip manufacturers jumping in and creating new devices. But we'll see.
Yep. I will say real quick before we move on from this topic, there are a couple of UI shell areas that still haven't been updated that I'm getting increasingly worried about, including the volume UI pop-up, which appears when you adjust the volume. That's from Windows 8, as is the default apps menu that pops up whenever you open a file that doesn't have an associated program. That's from Windows 8. And also when you plug in a USB, that pop-up is also from Windows 8. They've not updated those yet. There's still time. But we are running out of time. So Microsoft, please get around to doing that, because I'm going to be very sad if you do not update those 3 common UI elements. I'm going to call them because they are very common. But yes, that's basically everything for Windows 11. I guess we can move on to Windows 365, which launched this week. It's officially live. Unfortunately, for most of us listening, this isn't a service we're going to really take advantage of because it's only for businesses and enterprises. Us casual folk do not get to subscribe to this service, at least not yet, maybe in the future. But as of right now, that is not the case. We're talking about it because the pricing for the different plans was revealed by Microsoft finally, including all the different spec configurations and whatnot. I won't spend too much time on this because there's a lot of different ones, but I think the thing to really talk about is the entry-level price, which is $24 a month for every user, or if you have the Windows Hybrid benefit, you get it for $20 a month. The Windows Hybrid benefit being if you have a Windows 10 Pro PC already, you get a percentage off the subscription price. But we will refer to just the standard subscription prices because not everybody will have Windows 10 Pro or Windows 11 Pro. So for one vCPU, which I don't know what that means, 2 gigs of RAM, 64 gigs storage, that's $24 a month per user. Now that doesn't sound great, but you can spec it out at the top of the end with 32 gigs of RAM, 512 gig of storage for an eye-watering $162 a month. So that's with 8 vCPUs as well. So I think the TLDR is it can get quite expensive quite quickly, and on the cheap side, it's very underpowered. But again, this isn't for your average folk. This is for businesses and enterprises who have a specific use case for a service like this. I can't think of any use cases, but I'm sure they exist. But yeah, that's basically sort of the thing. But for enterprises, the pricing is about the same. It differs by a couple of dollars here and there, but the spec sort of configurations are identical. So there you have it. It also made headlines because the free trials for it, they ran out of space or whatever. So they had to sort of stop people from signing up from the free trial so that they could, continue running the service without any problems, which I thought was quite interesting. So hopefully this does well for Microsoft, because I'd like to see them bring it to consumers in some way. They will have to adjust the pricing, I think, because I don't think people are willing to spend $162 a month on a top-end cloud PC, I guess they're calling them.
Yeah, I mean, and if you're wondering who's using this, it's Frank, who's 58 years old and lives by his iPad. He refuses to use a PC because so he can now run Windows on his iPad. I don't know, but like you can, right? You can run this on an iPad. You can run this on a Chromebook. You can run this on a M1 MacBook, and so you can just run Windows within the web browser. You can use the remote client for this stuff. So it does allow you to run full versions of Windows on every type of hardware that's basically out there, which is a neat thing. And also, of course, saves everything you've been working on in the cloud, just like opening your instance again, which I think is a really, really neat idea. But yeah, you're right. I mean, first of all, before it comes to consumers, they need to make the argument of why consumers would even want this, which right now it's lacking, right? So as cool, I know we're all kind of nerds here and we're all like, oh, that's so neat. But the idea that your average consumer needs this or would even benefit from it, I think is a bit of a stretch right now. That said, I also consider this very much to be the future of computational mobile devices, because if you think about it, you can run really crazy hardware in the cloud, but have a really what's called a thin client, a really light and thin device, like something like that X1 Titanium Yoga I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast. Like that could now have the power of a whole server, allowing you to do 3D rendering on the go. Don't forget the Titanium has 5G built into it as an option. And now 5G right now is like, yeah, it's kind of there. It's coming. I mean, I'm seeing 5G light up more and more places. So it is coming, right? The speeds are also slowly ticking up on it, but it's still not a night and day thing. But we're talking 3, 5, even 10 years out, the landscape's going to be very different for this stuff. So Microsoft getting it out now and leaving this for enterprise and specific use cases is the smart thing to do. And as the hardware and technology develops, the use case for consumers may arise as well. I should point out HP's been doing this for a long time. I know I've mentioned this on the podcast. Their ZBooks and Z series devices have a piece of software that runs on a server and the laptop, and you get a free license with it too, so you can do 3D CAD on the go. So like really crazy renderings you can do remotely. And in fact, HP I forgot the name of the company, it was just this week, just bought a company that does specifically this. So in the enterprise space, this idea of like remote streaming of assets and abilities has been around for a while. So Microsoft is actually almost, I don't want to say they're late to it, but they're arriving to the party while others have already been there for a few years. They're just bringing their entire operating system, which is kind of a really nice thing.
Yeah, one of the benefits that I saw people talking about this week is that because these cloud PCs are hosted on Microsoft's Azure data centers, I guess, the internet speeds on the cloud PCs are hilariously fast. I think they're like a gig down and a gig up, or even more than that in some cases. So if you are, say, somebody who has a slow internet connection at home, maybe 70 down, but you need to download a large file for work, you could have a cloud PC which has a gig down and it downloads like that. You just connect to it, because obviously it doesn't take that much data to connect remotely to the virtual PC. And once you're there, you get super fast download speeds, which is super fun. That said, the cloud PCs are data capped, I believe. The business, I don't know about the enterprise SKUs. I think they have a different pricing method for data, but the business SKUs have a cap on data, outbound data. The lowest end ones capped at 20 gigs, whereas the highest end ones capped at, I think, 70 gigs. So, you are limited. 70 gigs is a lot of gigs for downloading stuff, but, you may hit that if you're using this for a specific reason. So keep that in mind if you do subscribe to this. But other than that, this is a cool idea. Like I said, they need to sort of iron out some pricing issues for if they were to ever bring it to consumers, but we are a long way off from that, so I don't think it's that much of a problem.
Yeah, I can't make a remote client BitTorrent computer.
Yeah, Microsoft will be like, no thanks, you're using all our data.
Yeah, BitTorrent. Remember BitTorrent?
Yeah, I actually have it installed right now.
Do you really?
I installed it earlier today for a thing, which I can't talk about.
Oh, okay.
But yes.
Fair enough. I haven't done BitTorrent in a very
It's terrible. The clients, BitTorrent and uTorrent both suck.
Right,
the
clients, they're
really
all
bad.
Yeah. It's like the Kazaa of like apps. If you got that reference, congratulations. You're probably old like me. All right, so that's Windows 365. Let's turn to Jez's editorial here. So our games editor, Jez Corden, took a surprising approach this week on Xbox Game Pass for PC is not good enough, he mentions. Obviously, he loves the concept of the Xbox Game Pass for PC, as we all do, because it really is amazing. It's the execution of it that is lacking. And so he had basically, I think, three main points of focus. One was the Xbox apps quality is atrocious. So yeah, I don't really love the performance of the Windows 10 Xbox app, and so he's had issues with that. Plain old speed. He says, Microsoft, you're competing with Steam and Discord for a lot of the features you're offering here, expecting users to accept the painfully slow, well, everything, given that the competition exists just a click or two away, isn't smart business. Sending messages on Xbox Live through the Xbox app is painfully slow experience. Right-clicking menus and general navigation is held up by the loading of assets from the web, which is just a poor design. If I click on something, the action should be instantaneous in all scenarios. And I agree with all this. I mean, even with the store, even the new store sometimes is still kind of a thing. Like the store is, there's a few instances of this in Windows 11 even. Even when Windows Update, sometimes you click something and it takes a second for it to kick in, pausing and all this kind of stuff. So it's not as, iOS, as much as I like to ridicule it sometimes, it does have a very good app download system. And you click that button and it's just like, bam, instant downloads. It's fast, and it's an area where Microsoft still lacks behind. Some of those complaints then translates to Windows 10's game delivery system just plain sucks, he says. And this gets back to the store and everything, and this idea of like installing stuff. It's just, it doesn't feel the same. Like when you're running a Steam client, right, and you hit download, it seems a little bit more clear. You even get those cool little graphs that shows your bandwidth.
Well, Microsoft throttles their download speeds through the store. Not only that, historically, the system that the store uses to download apps isn't great. It will sometimes, corrupt downloads, or the download will error out midway through for no reason. Like, especially for larger files, you don't really see this when downloading an app, like a small app. But if you're downloading a game, which can be, 100 gigs in the case of Halo 5, you will notice it, and it's annoying. And there's nothing you can do really.
And speaking of redundancies, you can go to the Xbox app on Windows 10 with your Game Pass, find a video game, click and download it there, and then it shows up in the store.
Yeah, it's using the same system. But
you can't download the game from the store.
I assume this new store app will fix some of this eventually, and also the fact that developers can now use their own CDNs. A game developer could host their own game on their own server and not have to deal with Microsoft's frankly terrible downloader system through the store. I assume this will be fixed. Microsoft is definitely aware of it, because I know this has been a complaint for years at this point. Developers, when talking to the store teams, have for many years told them that the download system is terrible and it needs to be fixed, and the store team has acknowledged that that is the case. So hopefully, I don't know if it will be here in time for Windows 11's official launch, but the Microsoft Store should eventually hopefully improve their download system in the back end.
And then the third complaint he had, which is also true, and it's reared its head this week, was Xbox Game Pass PC game versions are often worse. I don't know if I would say they're often worse, but there are definitely cases of it being worse. One of the biggest ones was The Ascent, which I've been meaning to play. Got very good reviews. It supports NVIDIA DLSS on Steam, but not on the Microsoft Store. And that is, I saw that go around on the internet this week, and that's a bummer. DLSS is a pretty cool feature, and I have a 3080 and a 3090 in my PCs here. It's like, I want to use that feature. Why wouldn't I? And the fact that, sure, I get the game to my Game Pass, but it's going to be kind of a neutered experience, at least in some small ways. I think is a little bit infuriating, and it has to do. He speculates that this has something to do with the game being ported from the Xbox version to Game Pass for PC, which is probably true. But as he also notes, that doesn't excuse the fact that you're basically getting a worse experience. He also said there's been some bugs on other Obsidian games. One of them was Pillars of Eternity. There's some issues there he's been trying to get fixed. That issue's only on the PC version for Windows Xbox Game Pass, not Xbox itself for the Steam version. So, but he gives some recommendations and stuff like that. I think this stuff is kind of true. They're getting there, right? They have the overall concept right behind Xbox Game Pass for PC. We're all in agreement there. But the way content is delivered, the way you find content, where you have a store and an Xbox Game Pass app, which seems weird and redundant. And, as you speculate, I think, the Xbox team just went off and did their own thing because they were so frustrated with the store itself. And now the store seems to be coming along. It's like, got to make those two teams kind of come together, make something, integrated. We shouldn't need two apps to handle that stuff. And then, this issue, we can't have, DLSS is becoming, if you don't know, DLSS has to do with the way that stuff renders and uses the assets from the web, and it basically makes your video card better than it really is. And this idea of that really does bother me. Like, if I get through Steam, I get the real version.
This is a similar thing to what Windows Phone had, where Windows Phone would have the apps in some cases, but the app would never be as good as it is on other platforms like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. They were always subpar first-party apps from the developer, but they were always missing features and eventually would always fall behind and then just be abandoned. It's a similar thing here. Like, I remember one of the Call of Duties came out, and I think it was the first one to launch on the Microsoft Store on PC, and I got it on the store on PC. And it was infamous for being Activision or whoever developed the game locked the multiplayer to the store platforms that you bought them from. So if you bought it on Steam, you'd only play with Steam players, which meant if you bought it on the Microsoft Store, you'd only play with Microsoft Store players. Which meant you couldn't find a game. Yeah, there was nobody to play with, and it was kind of annoying. So yeah, stuff like that, just weird. It's just weird decisions, man.
Yeah, so hopefully this stuff will get resolved. I still want to try the Ascent. But I guess this also fades nicely into the Steam Deck, because Steam Deck does solve some of these problems, at least that I have. We've talked about Steam Deck before. It's coming out, in coming months. If you got your pre-order in sometime in 2022, if you haven't yet. And, my thing is, I use a Switch on occasion, not nearly as much as I should, but the reason I used a Switch was because it had a lot of Steam games on it, because I like playing a lot of the Steam indie stuff. But that also meant I often had to buy the game twice.
Yeah.
And of course, my progress never would sync between the two, because that's that world. But now Steam Deck kind of solves this problem, because now you can I have a pretty big Steam library, and I can just install it on this device. And so I'm very much looking forward to that. Now, some media outlets got some early hands-on with the device. Linus Tech Tips did a pretty in-depth video. I think it was over 20 minutes long. And it's a pretty raw video of them just playing around with it, Linus playing around with it, and basically giving, direct feedback. And it's funny with Steam Deck, right? A lot of people are like, oh, yeah, two camps. People are like, oh my God, it's amazing, it's going to be ridiculous. And the other, it's like, it's going to be total crap, right? Because there's no way that thing can handle. Turns out that needle is going towards it's pretty awesome. The data and the processor and everything like that actually looks to be pretty solid on this. It really comes down to the DDR5 memory that helps with the bandwidth issues between a GPU and CPU. But yeah, you're getting 40 to 50 frames per second playing Doom on this thing, Doom Eternal, and it looked really great. Now, of course, the resolution is going to be a little bit lower, but I'm with Linus on this. I'd rather have higher frame rate than higher resolution and like maybe 30 frames per second, right? Yeah. And you can, of course, adjust all the controls in it to whatever you want, but I'll take near 60 frames per second on Doom and a handheld that's in my Steam library that has all my saves over a Nintendo Switch any day, or any other kind of janky third-party company that's out there. But the heat dissipation is also very good on it. In other words, the grips where you hold it stay very cool. And this has been an issue in some other devices too, but the thermals look to be very good on this. It's got a Type-C plug on top, which is a little bit weird versus on the bottom, but there's pros and cons each way. I think we're going to see a lot of accessories that can kind of fix things on this anyway. But that Type-C port is an open Type-C port. You can plug in a mouse to it. You can plug in headphones to it. It's just going to work, because this thing is ultimately just a PC. Yeah, it runs a Linux OS on it and the Proton emulation compatibility layer, which translates the Windows games to this. But you can install Windows 11 on it, Windows 10. I know people are going to be like, oh, but Windows 11 doesn't allow you to on blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. You'll be able to install Windows 11 on this. I guarantee you. You'll have to go get a license probably, so good luck with that. But that should be an issue. But we still know things on battery life and all that, but you can connect this thing to one cool thing he was able to do was he could connect it to an external monitor. You play the game on the big monitor, but then use um, the Steam Deck's display as a secondary monitor.
Nice.
So you could actually like run like Twitch or something like on that, and then have the actual game, like, which is pretty crazy, right? So this thing is like, I mean, he also pointed out how like the Nintendo Switch doesn't allow you to use Bluetooth headphones, even the brand new one, which is pretty weird. But this is like typical Nintendo. I've said before, Nintendo's strength is their IP, not their hardware. Their hardware is garbage, but people put up with it because of the IP. But this device actually gives you like the touchpads, the joysticks, the D-pads, the touch. Yeah, they have the new touchpads, which are pretty nice. It has 4 keys on the back. It's all customizable. You can do whatever you want on this thing, plug whatever you want into it. That freedom speaks to that audience who's going to really want to buy this and who will plug down the $550 for it. That's the mid-range one, but that's the one you should get. I was disappointed, and I had missed this, that the expensive version, the 512 gig version, which was like $650 or something like that, I forgot the price, has anti-reflective etched glass, which is actually what the NV32 uses too, I believe. I didn't know that, and I might have. I'll still just settle for a screen protector, a matte screen protector. I'll slap on there, but I might have given it some thought. That's kind of a bummer that they're doing that just for the high end version. The other ones get sort of just a typical glossy display, but it is a touch screen too, which is cool again. So you get to use this thing however you want. It has front facing speakers. I don't know. This thing is turning out to be pretty cool, and it really can play, AAA titles at a very high frame rate and allow you to give all that customization that you want. So I'm starting to think this thing is going to be pretty big, and just the idea that you can take it with you, plug into a monitor, and use like either a controller or a mouse and keyboard with it too for true mobile gaming.
Yeah,
I think is really kind of
See,
nice.
it's funny.
So.
The more I think about this, the more this device makes sense for me, because the only time I ever play PC games is when they're not on Xbox, because I primarily play on Xbox. And the only time a game isn't on Xbox is usually when it's an indie title. Indie titles will run great on this thing. Like he was playing, Linus was playing Doom Eternal on this, which isn't an indie game at all, really, but it was running great. If it can play that great, then surely it can play my stupid indie games with no problem at all, right? So yeah, I should probably consider getting one of these.
Yeah, and that's where the battery life goes from 2 to 8 hours.
Right.
Those are the range. I imagine if you're playing Doom, you'll be close to that 2-hour mark. But if you're playing a 2D platformer, you'll be close to, or even a over-the-top type game that's more of a slower paced, you'll be pushing more closer to those 8 hours, which is cool, But being Type C, you can, most airplanes now are coming with either USB or you can just do the AC charge, and you should be able to charge and play at the same time with this. I don't think the power draw will be that intense. But you could also use a battery pack, right? There's a lot more solutions and options here for even traveling. It is a big device. It's not tiny, compared to the Nintendo Switch. It is a 7-inch display on it. But that size allows it to, one, have a better battery life. It's a 40 watt-hour battery, which is a pretty significant thing. But they were also able to apparently look like they nailed the thermals of this thing, so it's not going to get uncomfortable to hold, which, again, pretty important. And some smaller devices have issues with that. So it really does look like they kind of found a balance here. And I think for a lot of people, myself included, it's here's your Steam library. That's going to be a big thing. And who knows? We know you can probably install Windows on it. We know you can install Windows on it, which also means then you can use Xbox Game Pass and stream to it if you wanted to as well. But I was going to say, who knows? Maybe Steam and Microsoft will work on something natively for this. We don't need to install Windows and just stream a game remotely through a dedicated app. Like, that's feasible. That could totally happen. So there's a lot of potential here, I think, for this device. I think it'll also be a nice holdover. I do believe that a cloud streaming dedicated device, I've held one. I can't tell you if it's coming out or not, but I've held.
Not for Microsoft, we should clarify.
not from Microsoft, but from another company. Um, but it's dedicated. It runs Android, and it has LTE and Wi-Fi and all that kind of stuff. And it's made just for streaming. You can stream Xbox, Stadia, Nvidia, whatever you want to it. I've held and used it. It's awesome. But the market's a little unsure on those kind of devices. I think we'll see them though. Um, but I think this device, the Steam Deck, is sort of a nice transition device for that phase where you still get the ability to play local, but then can also stream as an alternative. Whereas, this device is going to be priced around $300, I heard. So it's a little bit cheaper. It's also probably higher resolution and all this. You get benefits to either one, but they both looked really cool. So, but gaming is it's a big deal. It's definitely a big deal. So we'll see more of this stuff.
Yes.
All right, moving on real quickly here. Razer Zephyr, I believe that's how you pronounce it. Zephyr meaning like breath of wind to light winds, gust of air. This is Project Hazel, announced at CES 2021 by Razer. It is a smart mask that they've been working on for a while. And at the time, the project implied it was just a prototype and a concept. But it got a lot of good feedback and has now moved to an official product stage. So now it's gone from Project Hazel to Razer Zephyr. That's its official product name. It will be coming to beta testers in the coming weeks, I believe. I think they've already seeded out to some influencers and stuff like that. So there already are ones out there working. And you can kind of sign up if you want a beta test. So why is this thing kind of cool? Well, yeah, it has removable N95 filters that just kind of screw on. It has a transparent front face mask area, so you can see the person's mouth when they're talking. It has an auto low light sensor on it, so if it's nighttime, say you're in a nightclub or something like that, and you're wearing it, this thing will detect a low light and actually lights up the inner part around your mouth, so people can see your mouth talking, which is kind of clever. It has microphones and speakers in it, so that it can amplify your voice, and so people can actually hear you instead of speaking through the plastic. Again, pretty clever stuff. And what would it be without Razer Chroma RGB? Yes, it does light up and glow. I'm pretty positive it's controlled through the phone app, so you can turn it off if you don't want it, but you can also customize it. And then the whole thing sits into a Darth Vader-like chamber that recharges it at night, but also uses a UV light, which has been shown to kill COVID and viruses and bacteria, to then sanitize the whole device. We don't know the pricing of this thing. Obviously, it's going to be a few $100s. I don't know, $500, $400. I have no idea. And a lot of people may be questioning, why release it, right? The pandemic seems to be winding down, although if you're in the United States, we have the Delta thing going on, and now masks are coming back again. So maybe the timing on this actually isn't so bad. I will say, though, there are other issues here, which is in Asia. They have more of a history of these biological pandemics breaking out, like the bird flu and a couple of flus and stuff like that have broken out there in those regions. So they're a lot more accustomed to wearing masks out in public as a preventative measure, which is one reason why they were able to sort of get this stuff under control in the first place a lot quicker than, here in the States. And so they're a lot more prone to use this. Plus, there's this thing called Asia dust, which are dust storms that build up in China and other places where the air gets the air quality index, it's really high. And so there's pollution, and N95 works for that as well. There's also just city pollution. A lot of places in China and Asian markets do have poor air quality, so they're going to want to wear this for that. There's even people with severe allergies who would want to wear something like this. And dare I say, that unfortunately, COVID, the pandemic, probably won't be the last outbreak we're going to see in our lifetimes, right? So, yeah, unfortunately, there may be a next time. Who knows? There's Delta. There's also the Lambda that's floating around out there now. I think that's in South America. So there could be other variants coming around. So I think this will be a bigger deal for those markets, Asian markets, where, but we'll see how this does in the West, too. I think it's pretty rad looking. I would totally wear this thing out in public just for it's like cosplay, but it's functional, right? But I think it's kind of a really neat device. It should be coming out, like I said, coming weeks, coming months. You can sign up now if you go to Razer.com. They have info. We have it on the article too about it. But I think I would look pretty cool with this thing. My Panasonic Toughbook will be ready for the for the apocalypse. So it's pretty cool. But yeah, we'll see. That's Razer Zipper. And do you have any comments on that, by the way, Zach?
Not really. I don't plan on getting one of those. I think they're too flashy for me. How much did you mention the price for those?
We don't know the price.
They're going to be not cheap.
No, they're definitely going to be probably pretty expensive.
Yeah.
You can get them in white and black, which is kind of
nice.
Cool. They don't actually look that flashy if you don't turn the chroma on, obviously. They're just like kind of like normal, higher end, sleeker masks. But even from that sense, without the chroma, they're pretty cool. But yeah, throwing the chroma on could be kind of a fun thing.
I want it so you can configure it to like change colors as just when you're not even talking, just so you're always lit up.
I want it to reflect your mood.
Yeah, I'm red right now. Leave me alone.
People want to see me model this. Don't worry. I've reached out to Razer. I think I've made my position public on this. I 100% want this. I want to try it, and I will definitely wear it. I'm not saying I would wear it all the time, but listen, I'd rather have this thing sitting on my shelf in case we get another COVID thing going on. Bust that out, I'll be fine, and I'll look cool while being protected. So yes, I will try to get a review. You can ping Razer on Twitter, just hail them, be like, hey, we hear Daniel Rubino wants to try this. You should let him get one. Apparently, I'm not a popular enough influencer on the YouTubes. I think was it Richard Devine shared? That was a YouTuber who got one. He wore it for about 4 minutes. Kind of popped up the filter and it kind of broke, and he just took it off and was swearing the whole time. He thought it was cool, but then he went on and played a video game. So I'm not sure that was worth the coverage, but who am I to judge? Speaking of Razer, actually, we did 2 reviews this week. The Razer Anzus. So these were the smart glasses I showed off before in this podcast. They have yellow light filters in the lenses. You can also replace the lenses with prescriptions. You can also pop them out and insert the polarized lenses that turn them into sunglasses, which come with the device. So it's kind of a cool thing to have if you just want to wear them as sunglasses. And what the deal with these are, they have speakers built in that go, they're kind of like over the ears, basically. So they don't plug into your ears. So you can hear stuff while wearing them. And what's kind of neat about them is like, it's meant for people who work behind a computer all day, and you can connect it up to your PC or your phone, and you can use like your smart assistant and call up your smart assistant, and you'll hear it coming through there. Or you can play music, of course, too. And it's got actually pretty decent battery life. They turn on and off when you open and close them, which is cool. They have a funky charging system because they didn't want to run the wires through the whole glasses, which would have prevented them from closing like normal glasses. So they have separate batteries on each side, so they need to each charge. But you get kind of better battery life, and they feel a little bit more natural. He gave them, what was it, a 3.5 out of 5. I probably would have given them a 3 out of 5. The bad swapping in lenses is a bit of a pain. Sure, I think that's always going to be a case, though. I mean, it's kind of hard. Awkward pairing process on mobile. That's kind of true. Quite pricey. Yeah, they're $200, which isn't cheap. But I also feel like for this market, it's probably kind of okay. Touch controls are fiddly. Sure, there's touch controls on the side, which are always a little fiddly. My biggest issue, actually, is just the comfort of them and the way they look. And this is a challenge, right? Because Razer couldn't come out with 5 versions of these in 5 different sizes and different colors on a brand new product that they don't know how it's going to sell. So they're pretty conservative. They actually do have 2 different styles, which is actually not too bad. I mean, it's more than a lot of companies have done. So there's a rounded version and more square version, and they have 2 different sizes, basically a small medium, which is one size, which is not how that works, but that's fine. And then there's like a large size. I will say even the small size was too big for me. They were often sliding off my face. I ended up getting a strap to hold them on, but it's like still not ideal. And they felt like these, kind of a weird plastic on your head. They didn't feel particularly like outstanding quality. But I think the idea behind this is really interesting because obviously what everybody wants is a wearable heads-up display, right? The smart glass thing from years ago where you walk around and holograms are popping up and it's identifying stuff. I see Zach, it tells me it's Zach Bowden, gives me his LinkedIn, and you know, yeah, I can see his latest social posts. Like we've all seen the movies. That's what we want. But let's be honest, we're probably a few years away from that at least. And even still, when it come out, they'll be very expensive. And so you're going to need some devices in between, just like fitness bands. You have a basic bands, or you have like an Apple Watch, or you have like really expensive ones. But this idea of like, one idea I liked was, having it connected to my phone, and I could just ask Google Assistant or something like that, when's my next calendar appointment, read my emails, and that idea I think is kind of neat. This idea of just wear this wearable functional technology, but they still need I want to see Razer continue with this product line, but hopefully they can refine it, take some of the feedback back on there. Then I reviewed their Razer charger, which I won't go into too much detail.
Real quick, is Razer coming out of a product every day? What is happening?
It is ridiculous. It is ridiculous. I have an embargo next week for Razer. I will say we covered them partly because they're just a fun company to work with, but they're always doing new stuff.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, like they came out with a travel charger. Big whoop. Like there's a dime a dozen. But theirs is like the most powerful I've ever seen. It's 130 watts with 2 USB-A, 2 Type-C chargers. And so it works. I mean, I plugged in 4 things and maxed it out, and you can see I actually used a battery meter or a voltage meter, I should say, and I hit 132 watts of peaked at. Most of these chargers only go to 100 watts. I did find one that goes to 110, but still, you may be wondering, like, okay, is that really necessary? Or it really depends, right? Because if you're charging, this thing could charge a full laptop, right? I was able to, on the Dell XPS 17, it was pulling in 90 watts from the Type-C port, which is pretty cool. A lot of these travel chargers cap out at 65 watts for that port. So, but I will say it depends on the laptop you're using too. HP Envy went around 80 watts, but then I think it was the laptop Surface laptop only did around 65. So it really depends on the port itself and how the company configured it. But being able to draw in that much power and then still have room to plug in your phones or a smartwatch and not compromise on their charging rates is a nice thing when you're traveling. For some people, yeah, they kind of want that. No one else has done it. And it also comes with travel adapters. If I go to England, I can slap on the adapter and I got it with me, that, which is kind of nice. Again, most of these travel chargers don't do that. It comes with a nice cable too. But yeah, it's $180. Like, that is super expensive. The 110 watt one I mentioned, which has limitations. It is bigger. It is heavier. The Type-C doesn't only hit 65 watts. The whole thing though is like $60. You can literally buy like 3 of those for one of these. Of course, you'd be carrying 3 large chargers with you, so I get it, so you're paying for the privilege of this thing. So I think it's a great idea. It's really neat technology that they use. It's called GaN. It's a new, instead of using silicons, GaN basically is a new material that can hold heat better, basically, and electrons, all this kind of stuff. But yeah, only get this if you really, really, really need it. My other issue too was it's got a foldable 2-prong system, which is cool. I like the idea of fold, so this thing could literally fit in your pocket, which is cool. But those prongs, if you have a loose outlet, when you stick this thing in the wall and start plugging stuff in, it becomes very top heavy because it weighs a lot. It's still lighter than every other charger out there, but it's still dense. And because it's like, you plug in something and the thing can just fall out of the wall. So you have to be kind of careful. There's something to stabilize it. And, that's what that third grounding pin is nice to have sometimes because it does stabilize. Some companies got around this by having an extension cord. This doesn't have that. So that's kind of my issue here with it too. So, and then finally the X1 Yoga Lenovo ThinkPad Gen 6. I didn't review this, but Kale did. But he gave it a very good review. Yeah, I mean, for me, Yoga, and I do have probably the Carbon review coming up soon. The big deal about these is they're now 16:10 displays, 11th gen processors. The funny thing about the Yoga and the Carbon is they're great laptops, but they're always a few steps away from being amazing. Whether it's the display being the wrong aspect or the quality of the display. They tend not to be very bright. Lenovo also tends to have the worst audio. But each generation they get better and better, and they're getting there. They get closer and closer. And this generation stuff is actually pretty solid. Uh, so you can go check out that review if you're interested in the X1 Yoga. Although knowing Lenovo, they'll probably announce a Gen 7 probably pretty soon, which will be out by the end of the year. And I think that does it for reviews. And we do have a little extra time here. So, Zach, you want to mention about the SwiftKey syncing on Android update that came out?
Yeah, so real quickly, I guess, in the SwiftKey beta app on Android this week, Microsoft finally released clipboard syncing, which is something that I think we've known they were working on for 2 years at this point. I'm sure somebody on the SwiftKey team said it was coming. Finally in the beta app, and what it does is if you enable it, it will sync your clipboard across SwiftKey on Android as well as your Windows PC, and I guess SwiftKey on other platforms as well if you have clipboard syncing enabled. Some people sort of saw this and went, oh, this isn't new, this has been a thing for a while. It's only been a thing for a while if you've been using the Your Phone app and using your phone to sync your clipboard, because your phone can do that already, but SwiftKey itself hasn't been able to do that up until, well, this week. So that's a nice thing that they're adding. It's not on by default, of course. It's obviously privacy concerns and stuff, but if you want to enable it, you can do. And like I said, if you have clipboard syncing enabled on Windows 10 or Windows 11, those will sync across devices now, and you can see it in your sort of clipboard history menu within the SwiftKey keyboard, which is super fun. But that's basically it for that. Before we move on to the thing of the week, though, since we have the time, should we talk a bit about the Pixel 6 stuff that Google announced this week, which I guess could be considered?
Yeah, might as well if you want to take the lead on that.
Yeah, so
thing of the week.
Yeah, so. We've sort of known about the Pixel 6 for a while because Google. There was a big leak a month or so ago where they sort of leaked the design of it and the fact that it was a brand new design, has new camera setup and stuff, although not much else was known other than... Oh, no, actually, I lie. I think the entire specs list leaked. Specs list leaked, excuse me. So we knew it was going to have 8 or 12 gigs around, depending on if you had the standard or the plus model, ultra-wide camera or a bigger or a third camera sensor on the bigger model. 120 hertz display, but the big deal is the fact that these new Pixels will be using Google's custom-made Whitechapel chip. This week, Google pre-announced the Pixel 6 and the 6 Pro on Twitter. It's a really interesting way of announcing a phone. They just sort of did it in a series of tweets, 13 tweets. They're like, hey, we're announcing a new phone today. We'll talk more about it in the fall, but here's what you need to know. Here's the top billing stuff. New names, 6 and 6 Pro. New camera system. Bigger, better screens, etc., etc. But they also mentioned that they have this new Google chip called the Google Tensor. It's like Tensor, I guess. And this is supposed to be their own custom-made chip. I'm sure there's rumors out there as to who they're working with. Maybe it's Samsung to build this chip. But they're doing their own chip, which is a big deal. And I believe this year a few media outlets got a chance to hold on to them and sort of ask Google questions. Google sort of said, this is the year that we make Pixel an actual phone that we want competing with the iPhone. Because in the previous years, Google Pixel's always had good cameras, but they've never really been flagship quality in regards to other flagship phones. They've been, the Pixel 2 and the Pixel 3 were very much flagship phones in their own right in the Google line, but, the Pixel 5 wasn't, the Pixel 4 was questionable. And with this year, they seem to be going back to, we want to compete with the iPhone. And we're going to, even in Google's earnings call, which was recently, they said that within this next quarter, or the quarter towards the end of the year, we're going to be making serious investments and spending money in marketing for products launching in the fall, which suggests that Google is actually planning to have a big marketing campaign to back these new phones and compete with Samsung and iPhone and whoever else is up there in the phone market. And I think it's really interesting that Google is, after 5 generations of their phone line, only now deciding to take it seriously. So I'll be really interested to see how these phones do. I think the designs are really interesting. They have like a huge camera bump on the back, similar to the Surface Duo, and funnily enough, the Duo 2. They have obviously this new custom chip. They've got these better screens that they're all glass. They look really interesting. I really like the look of these new phones. But yeah, I do wonder if, we'll ever see the Duo sort of become this for Microsoft. Because, like I said, the first few Pixel generations weren't really that big of a deal for Google. It was a big deal that they were doing them, but it wasn't that big of a deal for the grand scheme of Google's business. And I know the Pixel 6 still won't be, but they want it to be. They're going to try and make that happen. Do you think we could ever see the same for the Duo line? I would hope so, but maybe not for a long while.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions with Duo. I mean, we have to see with version 2, right? We know the hardware we're getting pretty much at this point, which looks really nice, but there's still questions about the usability and the OS and how Android 11 is going to be on it. And
Yeah.
the problem is Microsoft is competing in a world where nothing stands still, and companies like Samsung and Google and even OnePlus and Realme even now, or Realme is making a lot of waves, is it's getting very, very competitive out there. We're expecting the Fold 3 coming out pretty soon, the Z Flip 3, and they're going to bring, they're not just minor spec bumps, right? They're going to be bringing some new technologies to them that, when you see Fold 3 compared to Duo 2, there will be a price difference in favor of Microsoft, but the Fold 3 is going to be a very tempting device, I think, for a lot of people. I think the price is still going to be too high for a lot. But, these companies, like I said, are definitely innovating so much around this stuff.
Yeah.
And Microsoft just isn't, they're not that company, right? I mean,
you're so right.
LG couldn't compete.
Yeah,
LG couldn't compete in this space. And it's just getting so hard. And even OnePlus, who was a darling years ago, we've said this before in this podcast, you and I both love them. Now we're both like, we're over OnePlus, right? But it goes to show how hard it is to compete. Microsoft's advantage is it's something different, right? It really is a radically different device. And, I got to publish my TCL review. It'll be a short review, but hopefully I'll do that soon because I'm going to go back to the Duo. I've been playing with it again. I miss using it, but I really want to see what version 2 is going to be like. I think I've said this before. At least the performance difference should make a big difference on using Duo version 2.
I think you're really right in regards to the idea that like the Surface team or like the Surface products, they don't innovate fast enough. Like every few years, 4 to 5 years, we will see a new Surface product form factor, and it will be this over-engineered in a good way, super crisp, super like almost perfect sort of thing that they've released. The Duo 1 was something like that. The Surface Book, the Surface Pro, Surface Lab. The Studio. We've seen it happen. But then once they release these products, it takes them such a long time to innovate on that form factor again and improve upon it. Every year, the Pro and the laptop are the exception in regards to refreshes because they get a new chip every year. It seems like, but the other products. Hopefully the Duo is one of those, but the other products like the Studio and the Book don't. They are on sometimes multiple years. They don't get updates, and it's a problem, I think. And in the phone business, you cannot be like that. You have to have a new phone ready to go every single year, and it has to be an update to the previous one. Imagine if Apple released an iPhone 12 last year and then went, we're taking a break this year. Here's the iPhone SE. Have fun with that. We'll be back the year after with a new flagship. That would be insane. Microsoft can't do that. They have to, if they want to compete as a phone, which I believe they do. I know they were trying to push this idea that it's a Surface, it's not just a phone, but it is fundamentally a phone. It has to compete the same as other phones like the Fold or even just standard slab phones. It will have to have every year a new version with an updated chip, some new technology that improves upon maybe newer Bluetooth or better. Whatever, you know what I mean? It has to have just newer stuff. It has to be improved upon year and by year. Even though, phone contracts are usually 2 years. It doesn't matter. The industry moves too fast. The Duo 2 will feel outdated very quickly if it doesn't get a successor within a year. Because then you are on, 15 months. And all these new phones have the 895, whatever the flagship after the 888 is. And your phone's still on the 888. It's like... Which I realise isn't an actual problem. It's not a problem, but it is a problem in regards to, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know what the word is I'm looking for. It's a problem in regards to, I guess, reputation or just the idea, the feeling of commitment. Whereas, it's just they have to do one every year, I think. If they want this to be taken seriously, they've got to iterate on it yearly, improve upon it yearly. They don't have to change the design every year. iPhone doesn't do that. They will, land on a design and they will iterate on that for maybe 2 years or 3 years. Microsoft can do the same. But as long as they are refreshing it every year with a new processor, more RAM, more storage, minor improvements here and there, I think that will keep people at least considering the Duo as a serious sort of product rather than just an experiment that will disappear one day, which is what they could very easily fall into that category if they do not do a Duo 3 by the end of 2022.
Yeah, I don't disagree. It's a little bit of a different story too. You know, with PC, the idea with Surface is a Halo device where you create these new form factors. They're expensive, but they're still. You know, I've said it before in this podcast. Like, you know, the HP Spectre X360 is the PC I recommend to most people. Is I think the best Windows PC. It does everything kind of like for most people, right? I mean, obviously if you're a gamer, not so. But when I pick up Surface Laptop 4. For me, with the Alcantara, I'm still just like kind of in love, despite the fact it has a lot of things I don't like, you know, the display glare and all that stuff. But there's something about the quality of the Surface devices. And that's the point of Surface, right? That's what its role is to serve there. It's so HP can still refine its experience so it can approach that specialness that I get in using a Surface.
That said, real quick, that said, the Duo doesn't fall into that category, in my opinion.
Right, this was my point. That, like, you know, what does this do here? So far, you know, Duo was maybe to inspire discussions and innovation around dual screens and foldable devices. We definitely see more going on with foldable, mostly because of Samsung, but Huawei is there too and some other companies. But we haven't seen any company take them up on a dual screen concept, which... You know, it's still early days. I saw some numbers from a company this week, and basically the projection is every year, basically, adoption of foldable devices, devices with foldable screens is going to double. And so it's kind of small now, but it's actually already doubled in the last year, and they're going to continue that trend. So it's going to really, around 2025, really kind of peak. I bring that number up because that's kind of the time frame I'm talking about here. So there's a lot of like room here for stuff to happen. And who knows, you know, Google is rumored to have, it's either dual screen or a foldable type device. And Microsoft wants that, right? Microsoft doesn't want to be the only cat in town with this kind of concept. They think they can do it kind of the best, but we haven't seen anyone else do it yet. And that impacts app optimization for that form factor. And so there's a lot of stuff here that's, I don't know, my long-term, you know, expectations for Surface Duo, I don't know at this point. I give it a 50-50 shot of it.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely it could not be a thing in a few years for sure. I definitely agree. Because it will depend on whether, because as we said, the Duo is not a hero device in regards to them having to sort of show an ecosystem how it's done. They can, because, you know, the fear with Surface PCs has always been that they don't want to step on the toes of their partners. Microsoft doesn't have any partners in the Android space. They are a competitor just as much as Samsung and Google and other phone makers are in that space. So they can, you know, pull out the shots and do the best they possibly can without feeling bad about anybody else, because, you know, they owe nothing to these other phone makers. They don't build Android, which is funny because Google is in theory in the same position that Microsoft is with Surface with the Pixel line, except Google is going all out this year and they're doing their own chip as well. You know, in the past, the argument's been made that Microsoft won't ever do their own chip because they don't want to upset Intel and Qualcomm and their OEM partners and so on. But Google's doing it, and Qualcomm, I assume Qualcomm's a bit upset, but they're not going to stop supporting Android. You know, like if Microsoft were to do its proper, because I know they do the SQ line, which is kind of their own chip, but not really. If Microsoft were to do its own chip properly, would that really upset their ecosystem that much? I'm sure it would be a much more bigger deal for the PC space than it is Google in the phone space. But is it though? Because Android is the most used operating system in the world. And Google doing its own chip and now having that layer, you know, they can do the top-down optimization. They can optimize the hardware and the software, the chip, just like Apple does. And they have that benefit, that advantage over Samsung and whoever else is building chips or phones with Android. Microsoft still hasn't given themselves that level of control because they won't do their own chip. But could we see it happen?
Yeah, obviously for the Surface PC line, that would matter most. But yeah, with this phone stuff, I just don't know where this is going.
Yeah.
Right. As to why they're doing it, they've actually been pretty clear about that. They want to be involved in the Android space because they have a lot of apps
Yep.
on Android, and a lot of those apps are the top apps on Android. So they want to be there for productivity, and them having their own device allows them to basically, experience developing on Android and what works best and everything like that. Obviously, Panos has a vision about dual screen devices being more productive, and it's actually, you and I actually agree on that. It is. There is something fun about Duo when you start using with dual screens, how you can work, and I do prefer it. Our issues are mostly about they don't control the operating system, so there's limitations there, and the version that shipped, the hardware was very old. It doesn't, while the overall design is excellent, the speed of it and everything that doesn't do it any favors. So we'll see with version 2. I did make a joke on Twitter that you can't complain about Duo slapped on camera, and then like the Pixel 6s.
All right.
I mean, it's true with the Pixel 6 at least. It doesn't look like it'll wobble on the table. It actually have a nice kind of angle.
That's true. Yeah.
I actually think the Pixel 6 looks great.
Me
I
too.
think it looks really kind of neat.
Mm-hmm.
It's something different. It has this what I call retro future look to it. It almost looks like something that was designed in the 70s as a futuristic phone. I wish they kept the fingerprint scanner on the back, but whatever. But the camera should be really nice, and it's going to be a basic phone, but that's sort of also the power of the Pixel.
Yeah, the point of Pixel is supposed to be this sort of stock Android, as they call it, the most basic version of Android. But even Google's stock Android isn't stock anymore. It's very customized to sort of to sort of promote Google services, which makes sense. It's a Google phone. But real quick, someone in the chat saying, no, this is some unexpected doom and gloom from Dan and Zach on the Duo for some reason. It's not, I wouldn't call it doom and gloom. I'd call it a concern or just realism rather, because we've said it many times. We've heard that Microsoft has been greenlit for 3 releases of Duo 1, Duo 2, presumably Duo 3, but they may decide to do something else, maybe a cheaper Duo instead. We know that's going to happen. We're coming up on Duo 2. It seems to be a huge improvement over Duo 1 in more ways than one. We've only seen the camera bump so far, but me and Dan have heard that there's more than just the camera bump. It has higher refresh rate displays. The displays are bigger and better, etc., etc. And then we have this other Duo which will be coming hopefully in 2022. But at the end of 2022, we will have to look upon the Surface side and think really, where do they go next? Do they continue down this dual screen path? Do they try to position the Duo as a more affordable foldable because of the dual screens? It's in theory cheaper to manufacture because it's not a foldable display. That's one way they could go. I do believe that they need to turn the Duo into a viable product, as in one that can make them money. It doesn't have to be like a huge business. It doesn't have to make them billions of dollars. But if the product line itself can make them money and have them in the green rather than essentially borrowing R&D money from the other Surfaces, which is kind of what I think this ended up being, especially with the 4 years of Andromeda that they had in between or at the beginning. That's what I think they're going to be looking at. Can they turn the Duo into something that people look at and go, that's actually a viable product that I am considering, and the pricing is right, so I can afford it. It makes sense at that price point, because I think even Duo 2 at $1,400 may not make sense for a lot of people, even if it has the top end specs and stuff. The fact that it isn't a single screen foldable, and that matters to a lot of people, because no matter how you position it, the dual screen form factor to a lot of people looks like the cheaper alternative. And in a lot of cases it probably is, but it looks like the cheap alternative, so the price needs to sort of match that expectation. You cannot price the Duo at the same as a Galaxy Fold, because the technology is different and people think the foldable screen is more advanced. Therefore, what am I paying for? The Duo doesn't make sense to people. So these are all these sort of things that they need to sort of combat, and we'll see at the end of 2022 where they are in that journey.
Yeah, it's one of those things where Samsung is just, a juggernaut. Right?
Yes, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not expecting them to turn the Duo into the iPhone. I'm not expecting that, but as long as they can make itself money and stay in the green, or even break even from sales on the Duo alone, I think that's something that they would consider keeping around after a third version.
Yeah, it's just that Samsung is such a powerhouse on R&D and marketing, and I don't know. It's just like, it seems like it's really hard to go up against and make a competitive device at all in Android. We'll see what happens, though. I know, we sound a little doom and gloom, but I think it's just a reality. I mean, a lot of us are just, compared to when Duo was announced, in 2019.
Hmm.
Wow. We're almost on 2 years. It's almost been 2 years since that announcement. A lot has changed, and so there comes this time where you have to reevaluate the world that we're living in, and who's got the momentum and who doesn't. And, it's hard to reconcile, these other devices that are coming out, that they're going to be, for a lot of people at least, sort of a better option. But we'll see, I guess, what happens. But yeah, hopefully I'll try a Pixel 6 at some point. But there's a lot of good budget phones coming out now too. But
Yeah.
I'll probably go back to my Duo 2 soon as well. I don't know if I'll get a Z Flip 3. We'll see.
The leaks look good.
Yeah, they got the bigger screen on the outside, improved cameras, and it's like a little bit thinner and stuff.
I liked the small screen on the first Flip. I liked the fact that, because it's similar to the Duo, the finality of closing it and being done. I liked that. Sure. And the Flip sort of offered the same thing, I think.
Yeah. These are kind of, it's cool devices, I guess. We got all sorts of, save up your money. Got the Fold 3, Flip 3, we got the Steam Deck. We got a
2 years ago.
2. Yeah, Surface Pro 8, maybe some kind of new Surface Book thingy. It's going to be a very expensive fall. Plus, there's the unknown knowns. The known unknowns, I should say. I'm pretty sure there's going to be a lot of new laptops and PCs coming out that are new devices, not just refreshes with Windows 11. That should be kind of cool as well. But I think that does it for this week. I don't have a thing of the week, unfortunately. I did see, as I mentioned, Old. That was kind of fun.
I do have. Zach, I have one brief one, real quick. I won't talk about it too much because I don't want to spoil it. But there's a new Netflix movie called Red Blood Sky, I want to say. Let me double check that. Red Blood Sky. It's a horror film, so caution if you're a child or scared of horror movies. It's not the scariest horror film I've ever seen, but it is classed as a horror movie. And it's about a group of terrorists who hijack an airplane, believe it or not. But there's a twist. If you watch the trailer, this is kind of in the trailer, so I will mention this, even though I guess technically it's a spoiler. There's a vampire on the plane, and the vampire is a vampire and can infect other people and turn them into vampires, essentially. So yeah, it's an interesting twist on a hijack movie, but I recommend it. I think it's very fun, and I enjoyed it.
That's pretty funny. Yeah, there's Netflix has slowly evolved into the ID channel.
Yeah,
which is basically just all murders and serial killers and then zombie stuff, and it's just like, apparently this is just what people want to watch. It's just other people suffering. I don't know what that says about the human species, but it is what it is. Anywho, that does it for this week. You can join us live every Friday, 2:30 p.m. Eastern time on our YouTube channel at Windows Central. We will do Q&A with the audience now, so you guys can start firing off your questions if we didn't talk about it during the podcast. Follow me on Twitter, Daniel_Rubino, Rubino, or follow Zach as ZACBOWDEN. You can ask us questions there and let us know how we're doing. You can also join our Discord server by going to windowscentral.com/Discord to get the address there and jump in, where we talk about things with Windows 10, Windows 11, Surface, Xbox, and more. It's always a good time. And of course, we'll be back next week. As always, thanks for listening in. Take care, everyone.
Awesome. So yes, if you have any questions, now is the time to ask. We'll hang around for a certain amount of minutes and answer them. The movie was called Red Blood Sky on Netflix. Again, it's a horror film, so if you are under the age of whatever it is that you aren't allowed to watch horror movies, do not watch it. Otherwise, caution, because it's scary a bit.
Does the Surface Duo 2 have curved in screens where they meet?
Maybe.
Maybe.
And put it this way,
you mentioned about patents before on this podcast.
It is something that they have looked into, and is a thing that they do want to do. That's all I'll say. Any more news about the book 4? Not really. The only other thing I've sort of heard is perhaps it will have a high refresh rate display. I think that's going to be a common theme for the services this fall. All of them, I think, being announced, maybe except for the Go 3 if that gets announced. But all of them will have a high refresh rate display of some kind, whether that be 90 hertz or 120. And that just falls in line with the fact that Windows 11 is sort of much more animation focused, and a higher refresh rate display really accentuates that. So I think we're going to see that on these new devices. Also, we keep calling it Book 4, but again, I'm not convinced it's going to actually be a book series. I think this is going to be a new product name of some kind. So keep that in mind.
Book 4 is dead. Surface Book's dead. Could Win 365 end up being added as a feature in future build of Windows? I wouldn't think of it like that. It doesn't make sense. Why would you want to run Windows within Windows? That's a little too meta even for me. What I think you mean is, and I think that could do, I think with Office 365 or whatever it's called now, Microsoft 365, I think for consumers and people with family plans, they could easily at some point offer a version of this that's very much just limited by bandwidth and performance, right? You get a free gigabyte of data you can use with it, basic level, and you can try it out, and that'll come with every family plan, right? And then if you want and you like it, you can then upgrade to higher versions. I think that's a very smart and obvious way that if they were to try to push this on consumers, how you would get them by giving them a free trial, just kind of like how OneDrive works, right? And you tie it to that account and that annual rate kind of thing. So that could happen.
Will there be a Surface Studio 3 this fall? I do not believe so. I think the Studio 3, if that even exists at this point, will not be a thing that we see this year, unfortunately.
There's a possibility that Surface Duo 2 would be able to run Windows 11. So we're conflating two things here. I mean, could someone theoretically hack on Windows 11 to make it work? Sure. I mean, they're hacking Windows 11 on no Lumias, right? So I guess it's possible. Are you saying there's a chance that it's going to be easy, it's going to be something sanctioned, or if it's going to be even something desirable? I'm going to say no to all those. I think it's in your head you want Windows 11 on this device. I think if I were to do that, you would think it's the dumbest thing in the world. You use it for 5 minutes after the novelty wore off. I don't think it would be useful at all.
Yeah.
Plus, you wouldn't be able to make phone calls with it, so what would be the point?
Assuming 5G and cameras are not a concern, would waiting for Duo 2 be rewarding, or should one stick with Duo 1 bought at $1,400? The Duo 2 will be a better Surface Duo in pretty much every aspect. If you like the Duo but wish it was better, then the Duo 2 is a product you should consider buying. That said, if you're content with the current Duo, you don't find that the laggy touch response or the poor camera to be an issue, or the battery life. At this point, I've seen a couple of people saying their battery life in their Duo is a little bit worse than it was at launch, which doesn't surprise me. Batteries do deteriorate over time. Then yeah, keep with it. Get the most out of your $1,400. But like I said, the Duo 2 will be in almost every aspect a better phone. So yeah.
Will Groove Music be updated? I doubt it. Or rather, that's an interesting one where I could see them merging features. Maybe they should just have a media player, basically.
Yeah, right.
Go back to a unified default player that can handle MP4, MP3, AAC, and do all that kind of stuff, and get away from the Groove branding and everything like that. So they should hopefully kill Groove because it needs to die, and just merge MP3 functionality into another app, which I think they could do. Again, the movies and TV app, I don't have anything fundamentally wrong with it. It's pretty basic though, but that's another app I could see, getting a revision to it. So hopefully that'll happen.
Overall, do you think Windows 11 provides a much better experience in tablet mode, and what do you think is missing? Can you help provide visibility to some crucial requests in Feedback Hub with an article? Could do. So for me, the tablet mode, it's not really a mode anymore. It's just tablet, touch experiences on Windows 11. It is, for the most part, better than Windows 10. I've mentioned this before. There is one key area for me where it's a step back, and it's the fact that apps do not run full screen when using just a tablet anymore. They run in Windows, which is fine. It's a bit of annoying that you have to maximize every single one. But if you're using a Surface Go at 10 inches or 10.5 inches, it gets a little bit annoying a little bit quickly. I would love if they added a toggle in settings or somewhere where when you are using just as a tablet with touch, the apps just know to open maximized by default. That's an easy way to fix that problem. And obviously then swiping down, you could initiate windowed mode if you want to. It's easy just by swiping it down. But as of right now, they don't open in full screen, and it's a little bit annoying. But other than that, I think this is, for the most part, a much better UX for it. The gestures are nice. Again, I think they could be better. I say that, but I don't know how they could be better. That's the problem. I would just want to say more iPad-like, but that's a really lazy way of putting things because I don't want it to be exactly like iPad because iPad multitasking is confusing. You have to learn how to use that. But yes.
My idea of making tablet mode more useful is just to make tablets more useful. I have no use for a tablet, so I just don't care. Just do not care.
Yes.
One question here quickly. What is the cause? What is the cause of the global chip shortage? Demand. Usually how these things work. Sharp demand for PCs, smartphones, IoT, servers, chips in cars. Your average car only had about 5 processors before. Now it's like 50 in more modern cars. All that is causing a shortage on basically the raw materials and getting them and producing them. And there's just high demand for that, smartphones and all that. And shipping and the pandemic threw things, and the pandemic threw everything off. Basically, factories ramped down, changed status, and all this kind of stuff. And now suppliers are having to catch up. It's the same reason why it's been hard to get chicken, in the United States. There's just been supply issues. So, high demand, small supply. There you go.
Is Win32 OneNote part of Office / Microsoft 365? Technically, yes, but OneNote Win32 is also a standalone application that can be downloaded on its own. So you don't have to be subscribed to Microsoft 365. It is a free app, but it is bundled with M365 if you have it.
Any info on better multi-screen support for Windows 11 apps launching from the screen opened? Will there be better multi-screen support for future dual-screen devices? We don't know. You guys watch the Olympics? No, don't care. I root for them. I'm very happy for them. They're very talented people. Just do not care.
Here's the thing. I just don't like sports. So
yeah, I only watch UFC. Said this many times. And I like any sport where the goal is to punch the other person in the face. Equal opportunity, both women and men punching each other in the face, I'm happy with. Speaking of, good UFC for this weekend, UFC 265. Beer and pizza, I'll be a very happy Saturday night.
Nice.
Is there a way to watch Microsoft movies on Android? Nope. Movies anywhere, that's it. Will that change? We don't know. We heard initially that there might have been some movement there, but as of now, there's nothing. So...
Will there be any updates to PowerShell with this new Windows UI refresh? I don't think so. Isn't PowerShell a command line? Why would there be a UI refresh? Maybe there's a UI aspect to it. I don't know. But I haven't heard anything, so...
Will maps be updated for Windows 11? Don't know.
Right.
Could see that going away.
Yeah.
I honestly have no idea what they do there.
To be fair, the Maps app already is kind of modern looking. I do realize it's still sort of using MDL. Actually, let me open it. I've not opened it in a while. Here's the other thing I hate about Windows 11. Even though you've connected to the internet, you've set it up, you've been using it for 4 weeks, if you've not opened one of the built-in apps, it's not installed. You have to click it and then it'll be like, oh yeah, Maps needs an update, which is what it's doing right now. I've had this PC since Windows 11 came out and it's still not even installed. It's so annoying. So yeah, no, you're right. It does look like a Windows 10 app still for the most part. But even if they just gave it a minor UI thing just to make it have rounded corners and stuff, I think that'd be enough.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what else it really needs. Like, you're not gonna send out the Bing van again to
the
anything.
Bing van.
So I mean, I don't know what else they're supposed to do here. I mean, I guess send to your phone. Does that even work? I mean,
what does that use?
Who uses it?
Does it? Is that a Windows Phone thing? That'd be hilarious.
Let's see. Pizza Hut's share. Yeah, they could update the share menu. That's for sure.
No,
Oh,
is
it
it?
kind of does. It does. Goes to. I think so. Yeah, it looks like it. Yeah. It uses a new share feature.
Okay, I'm
Copy
doing the same
link.
thing. Share.
Yes. I guess you can't send it to your phone because what would it open on your phone? Oh, there
I
is
guess it
your
would open the
phone.
maps, just
Link
whatever
phone.
maps app you have.
Right.
I want
Let's
to
see.
try
Here
it.
it goes. It
Are you
open up
doing
on
it?
my
Oh, you're doing it. Okay.
Samsung.
So which
I
phone
hate
do I have
Samsungs.
synced?
Let's see. Pizza Huts.
Oh, okay, so it opens Bing Maps just in the web browser. For me, anyway.
Yep.
Which is not a
Yep.
great experience,
right.
but it works. Can you install Bing Maps as a web
Yeah.
app?
Why didn't I update my default? There's no Maps app for Android.
Yeah, but can you install the web app?
I don't know.
Let's try it. Let's find out. Doesn't work. It doesn't even let you go to Bing Maps on the web, on the phone. How funny.
And they should definitely keep the app around. I guess they could update it, but they'll have to wake up Larry from Maps department. No one's seen him in 2 years.
I was impressed by how quickly it shared to the phone, though. That was really nice.
Yeah, it did. It did work well. I agree.
They're like, why did two people just share a map to their phone? We're the only two people to ever do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Do we think that the Duo 2 bumper will have a lip that would essentially extend the camera bump across the device? It's a good question. I feel the answer is probably no, but only because the bump is so big. Like on the Duo 1, like I've put the bumper on mine, by the way, at this point. It's not that big. Like the bump on the Duo 2, I think is quite a bit bigger than this. So I mean, they could do it, but it would feel really chunky at that point. So I don't think they will. But I could be wrong.
Nothing. No one else.
Any more questions? Final call for questions. Then we're gonna wrap up for the night, I think.
Why we haven't done a Domino's pizza recommendation in a while. Yeah, it's true. I haven't actually.
Me neither.
I've been on ever since I've been going back to the gym. Been cutting back on the pizza, so really haven't ordered much lately. Sorry.
Have you heard anything on the Xbox streaming stick? No. The Xbox team sort of pre-announced that way in advance. I don't even think they know what the streaming stick's going to be able to do. So, no info on that. Would a cheap Duo 2 model sold at a lower cost, I assume you're asking, help people understand the power of two screens? Yes. The biggest, the problem most people have, I think, with the Duo form factor is that it's too expensive. If you can bring that under $1,000 or even less than that, $800, $700, I think that opens the door to a lot more people willing to try it, and commit to a sort of 2-year contract on one via a carrier or whatever. But yeah, I do think the goal for Microsoft is to, at the very least, do a cheaper Duo or expand the Duo line into a premium line and a cheaper line, so that people who want to try it can do it. And if they like it, they can then eventually upgrade to the more expensive line and have all the bells and whistles that a sort of flagship smartphone has. Similar to just, what Samsung does and what Google does and then what Apple does. iPhone SE, iPhone 12, Google Pixel 4a or 5a, Pixel 6. Then Samsung has 1,000 different phones ranging from free to to $1,800 in the Galaxy Fold. So, yeah.
Xbox VR headset. No, doubt it.
They've said no many times. What's his name?
Until they can make it truly wireless, I don't
Yeah.
think they'll do
Phil
it.
Spencer
But
does
even
not
then-
believe in VR. I think VR's great.
Yeah.
I have a VR headset.
I shrug. But I'm not a gamer, so I don't really care. But yeah.
Integration of music providers into Windows 11, just Spotify or other music providers as well. I assume just Spotify. it's not as simple as just saying, "Oh, let's integrate." I think Microsoft has to get permission from other music providers. I could be wrong on that, but I think they do, and I doubt Apple will say yes. And who else matters? Deezer, Tidal, nah. Spotify is the one you want.
Yeah.
A cheaper Duo without a big camera, then I assume it would have a lesser camera system. I don't know if it. I assume it will still have a bump, but who knows? I don't know. Who knows? But I will say I do think that them having the camera on the outside will be a thing going forward, and it will likely have a bump just because I think it's necessary. Because obviously having that differentiation will be. I think what they found is that the inside camera on the Duo is too confusing to master. For normal people, it is out of the question.
Right.
As a tech enthusiast, I am frustrated with how this camera system works. Not in regards to the camera performance, which is bad, but that's fine for me. They're just getting it to work, getting it into position and figuring it out, and the gyro not working. It's a nightmare, and it just doesn't work. And I think that they've decided that one on the outside makes more sense. Because it's just easier. You open it, take the photo. And if you don't want to be that conspicuous, you can, I don't know, hold it like that. Or just use the inside camera if you still really want to take advantage of that. That will still be there. You can still do that. Not a problem. Heard anything about earbuds 2? I have not, unfortunately.
All right. I say we wrap it up.
Okay. Dan's calling it. Thank you very much for tuning in. We'll be back. We might not be back next Friday because I might be AFK. I'll talk to you about that afterwards. But yes, I will keep you updated on Twitter when we go live and stuff. But until then, we will see you next time.